What's your story? Whether you're a client or an independent financial advisor, we know you face many important decisions that can affect your and your clients' long-term financial success. Welcome to the WIN Podcast, What's Important Now with Corey Heimensen, accredited investment fiduciary and president of Heimensen Wealth Advisors. In this podcast, Corey helps you identify your goals and objectives through financial education and comprehensive planning, while inspiring you to make better behavioral decisions in your personal finance. With a twist on pop culture and current events, join us as we explore growth and protection strategies for individuals, advisors, and their businesses. Come and discover what's important to you now.
Hello and welcome to the WIN Podcast with Corey Heimensen. Corey, how you been?
Unbelievable.
I think that's,
How you like that?
Is that a new word? I think that's a new one, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of was at a loss there. So how are we going to get through like 35 minutes of this if I almost got stumped by the basic intro question?
The very first question.
Holy cat.
We'll just rewind this and I'll just say, hey, Corey, how old are you?
You made Jeez, man, this is going to be a tough day.
Yeah. Well, let's not focus on those two questions then. Hey, we are here for I love the notes that you sent me. I think the concept of this podcast is going to be really good. Why don't you share with the audience what we're talking about today?
Yeah, the title is called Blockers and Other Tales from the Airport, which I know is random. I know it's random.
Well, yeah, but I'm trying to figure out how those two pieces fit together. Yeah. That's interesting. All
well,
right.
Yeah, generally, we seem to be pretty good at wrapping things up with a nice bow at the end, and it all totally sort of makes sense. So yeah. I'm optimistic that I can bring this one full circle with your assistance.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah. So where this is coming from is recently I had to do some travel for business, and that required some airport travel. Mm-hmm. And in my infinite wisdom, I decide to save a few bucks, on the flight, shop around. Ultimately, what I book has multiple segments, meaning you're in the air, you're down at a new airport, connection to connection, all this stuff. And so while I thought I was really wise when I booked this, about 2 airports in, you realize, oh yeah, things are expensive at the airport. And if I'm killing time, I'm going to be eating and drinking, most likely, let alone buying magazines or whatever. But I mean, pretty soon you realize, yeah, I probably was better off paying more for my seat and travel and being in the air longer than I was on the ground.
Yeah, good point.
So anyway, from that journey to and fro, which was safe and fine, it was all good, I had a lot of time to witness people and things, and so that's where we're going to go today.
Okay. All right. How do we start?
Well, let me go back with a fun fact. Can I bring a fun fact?
Of course.
Today?
It's your show, brother.
I had a little flashback in time here when I was putting this outline together, and it goes back to when I started my business, actually. So we're going back, more than 2 decades, and I started from scratch. And so at that time I thought, hey, we should do a newsletter. And so I wrote a newsletter, and the very first newsletter I put together for prospects and clients and whoever else I could, hand this thing to, the front page was like a letter or, that I had written. And basically I likened myself to an airline pilot, meaning you don't care how the flight gets from here to there. You just want to get there safely. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And essentially that's kind of like financial planning or saving for retirement or other goals, that there's going to be turbulence, but you don't strap on the parachute and go out the side door at the first little bump up there,
Yeah. Yep. Very true.
So anyway, for a long time, some of my closer friends then were joking and calling me the pilot was my nickname. So that comes up once in a while still, but I have no concept of actual flight knowledge.
I think I want to call you captain from now on.
And maybe I've used this before in another podcast, but I've always thought I wanted to be like a knight. So like a Sir Corey.
Sir Corey.
Yeah, whatever. I'll take captain. Anyway, so where are we at?
Blockers and Other Tales from the Airport.
Okay, yeah. So blockers. Okay, so I'm going to throw a question back at you.
Okay.
So Eric, if you think of the word blockers, what comes to mind, or what's the first thing you think of?
Football.
Yeah, I think that's right. And,
every time. That's why when you told me the title, the first thing I was thinking about was a bunch of football players inside an airport. And I'm like, where are we going with this? So,
there you go.
But yeah, that's what I think of.
So you think about this, I guess a lot of people, when they watch football, they probably do not watch the linemen or the blocking schemes, but really that's an integral part, or arguably that's what wins and loses games probably.
Absolutely.
And so what are blockers trying to do? They're trying to control things. They're trying to control the line of scrimmage, to accomplish fun things for the other athletes on their team that get all the headlines, right? The quarterback, the running backs, wide receivers, all that stuff. So as I was thinking about that, this is a fun story. And I know my wife is just going to roll her eyes. She was not on the plane with me, but this is going to be a good story that ties into her. So when my wife is on a plane, if she's in the aisle seat and this plane lands, we're not first class people. We're in the middle of the cabin here somewhere. And so she likes to put her elbow or knee out into the middle of the aisle, essentially impeding the progress of the people in the back of the plane that want to try and get off first.
Right.
So I'm affectionately calling that a blocker.
Okay.
A blocker of the aisle, right?
I like your wife already. I can tell you right
So,
it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
These people back there just trying to run up before the plane's even stopped. And come on.
It's one thing if the flight's late and, somebody's going to miss their connection to see grandma or, whatever. But most of the time, the flights are on time. Maybe they're early. I mean, there really is not a real rush to run from the back of the plane to the front when the cabin door is not even open.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm on this first flight, just me, no family members with me. And as the plane touches down, I think, I think I'm going to be a blocker today. And this is so out of my box. I don't like conflict. I'm not going to, get into a fight with a waiter or a waitress, but I thought I'm going to do this, and so this plane lands and I instantly put my knee and my elbow out in the aisle and I look across the aisle and that person does the exact same thing. Nice. And we almost kind of shared some eye contact, like, yeah, we got this, and there's people instantly standing up, within our space, essentially trying to get through it. And we held our ground.
Yeah.
And it was exhilarating. It felt great. So I know my wife's like, I don't even know this guy now when she hears this. But anyway, super fun. So that's my first category, or my first observation from this trip, is that blockers are important in a lot of different walks of life when you are trying to control something that you can control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so there you go.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, my mind goes to football, and it also goes with the plane analogy as well, because blockers create a path, right, for the running back specifically. They will create a specific path for them to have success in. And again, they don't, like you said, they don't get the glory. They do help that person get to their final destination. And in your instance, you guys were, and I've seen it too many times, I'm sure you have too, where people rush forward and all of a sudden some little old lady is standing up out of her seat and they just basically kind of mow her down, or they bump into her and she goes sideways. You're like, what are you doing? And it's just kind of selfish in my opinion. So I like the fact that you're blocking those yahoos.
So there you go. So, okay. So that's category one, or observation one, I'll call it.
All right.
And so now the next one, and this happened to me. So get off my first flight, spend my time, spend my money, get on the next one. And this time I'm sitting in the window seat. And so I board when I'm supposed to board. I'm courteous, doing everything like cattle, loading cattle,
Yep. Yep.
And I get to my row and there are two people, one in the aisle, one in the middle seat, and they are reading magazines. They got their seatbelts on. You'd think they were 2 hours into the flight already. And I say, excuse me, I have the window seat. And they look at me like I have, stolen their dog or something. I don't even know how to say how annoyed they were. And I'm thinking, this is going to be a good hour and a half when I ask for pretzels and a glass of water or whatever they have to hand over these people.
Yeah, the bag of 5 pretzels.
And so as I rode that flight, or that segment of the trip, it just kept clicking in my head, like, why would people be so unaware of their surroundings? That they would get dialed in or buckled in and put the blinders on unless they're trying to control something. And I don't even know what they would be trying to control, if we're going with that theme today.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we've all experienced it. Anybody listening to this has experienced that, where you're like, okay, you're the middle seat or you're the aisle and there's a seat next to you. Why are you fortifying yourself, fortifying your position, essentially making it harder for yourself just to even get out of the aisle to let somebody in or whatever. And I'm the guy that, and my wife hates this because I talk to strangers, right? It doesn't bother me at all. But a lot of people don't know that if you're on the aisle seat, if you reach back on the armrest that's in the aisle, under the bottom, near the back, there's usually a button that you can push and raise that. And people don't know that because you can see them trying to, like, their knees are forward, their butt's kind of scraping on every armrest as they go by because they don't know you can raise them and make it easier for you to get in and out. And I usually will teach a person like across the aisle from me, hey, did you know that this thing raises? They're like, what? I've been flying for years, But you want to make it easy for people, and bucklers don't do that.
The next thing I'm thinking is every flight you have to watch the same demonstration. And I understand the people that work on the flights, this is about safety, and I get it.
Yes.
But you're right. To your point, do we have to learn how to buckle and unbuckle a safety belt or a seat belt thousands of times, and yet what you just described has never once been covered by a flight attendant?
Exactly.
I
never thought about that. You're right.
Give me the in-flight card. Give me the in-flight card where I can see the make and model of the engine on this plane, or where I'm going to jump out on the inflatable raft or whatever. But I mean, how often does that really come into play? I mean, every flight you could put up these hand rests and it would make a hell of a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there you go. The other thing I was going to say, when you're talking about which seat people are in, there is one airline where you really don't have an assigned seat and you just go in there and you can sit where you want. The concept is good. The outcome is a cluster, if you ask me, because everybody sits on the aisle and in the window, and then they give you the eye roll when somebody at the end has to sit in the middle seat.
Yeah.
So that's really not a buckler thing. That's just I don't know.
That's
anyway.
a slow people thing.
Whew, getting fired up today.
Yeah. All right. What's next on your list?
Okay. So the next on this, and I'm going to throw out a disclaimer first, because I am not trying to offend anybody here, but this category is called the pet smuggler.
What?
Okay. So here's my disclaimer. I completely understand that some people rely on, or they need emotional support animals or assistance animals.
Oh yeah.
All day long. I get that. That's totally cool. Great use. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But anymore, it sure seems to me, if you go to an airport, you see a lot of animals. And I think people are taking advantage. Well, that's not very nice. Some people, I think, sort of take advantage of the system, and maybe they say they need their pet. Now, there's a fee, there's a cost. I mean, you have to pay to bring animals on planes. You know, so fair enough. If somebody's paying the fee to bring their German Shepherd on the plane, I mean, so be it. It is what it is. But interestingly enough, I saw an article not too long ago that the TSA transportation division, is finding more and more people are smuggling their pets, small dogs, small cats, inside of carry-on baggage.
Oh, Lord.
So that they can avoid the fee. It's like $100 or $125 one way to fly an animal on a plane. And so people are putting these things in their carry-on luggage, zipping it shut, running it through the X-ray machine. And if you go out there and find this article, you can see pictures. You can see pictures of pets inside of carry-on luggage next to other objects. Yeah, it's crazy. So point being, here's somebody again trying to control their outcome and save a few bucks because they think they can, without real thoughts on what they're causing or damaging, or the damage they're doing. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's it. I haven't seen that yet. I'm glad I haven't. It live. I haven't seen it live. I don't know what I would do in that case.
Well, and you hear some of these stories. I know the airlines have cracked down that there was somebody that wanted to bring their emotional support peacock on a flight. And, I don't know where this ends. There
was a guy with an alligator tried to do the same thing.
Woo.
It wasn't a big one, but it's an alligator. I don't care how big it is.
You just shake your head.
Yeah.
As they always say, reality is maybe stranger than fiction, right?
Yeah. Yeah, seriously. I'm all for support service animals. Service animals are amazing. And usually if they're real, right? And I'm not saying this to be judgmental, but there was actually a crackdown probably 5 years ago. I'm sure you saw this in the news. It was 5 or 6 years ago. There were people counterfeiting those certificates that people have to get from a therapist to have a service animal, and the certificate that the service animal had to have that they actually passed the course to be a service animal. There was like a business where people were forging documents. It's like, people forge passports to change their identity, but when you have to forge your dog's credentials,
that's amazing.
That's just a bit much.
You shake your head. I don't know. It's a good thing I don't travel for work like weekly, because I would really be cranky, right?
Yeah, seriously.
Or you can see why people drive.
I don't have enough money for a private jet, but that's where I'd be leaning at that point.
Oh, man, got that right. So this next category, I know this is one everybody is going to be familiar with, but I'm going to call them the Bluetoother.
Oh,
I don't even know if that's a word.
Going with this. I know exactly where you're going with this.
I mean, so for some of those people out there that maybe aren't into this, you can have a Bluetooth device, or basically something hooks in your ear and wirelessly connects to your phone, so you can talk and don't have to hold your phone and all this stuff. But where I'm really getting annoyed here are these people in public. Doesn't even have to be an airport, but no matter where you go, I don't know how many valuable things you talk about on your cell phone every day but people in airports really seem to just be babbling and using their Bluetooth device so everybody can hear them and they can talk with their hands. And yet I never really see one of these people multitasking.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Hold your phone, maybe go stand in a corner where it's quiet and you don't have to tell me about whatever meaningless thing you're telling me about, even if I'm not trying to listen.
Yeah, seriously.
And so I'm going to give an example, and I hope this person, I have no idea who she is, but I hope she listens to this and she realizes how annoyed I was. So this is on my way home from this trip. It's like 4:30 in the morning, because we're taking off at 5:25 a.m. So nobody wants to be there, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And in comes this lady and doing exactly what I'm talking about here. And she is talking at the top of her lungs, it feels like, because she apparently had a condominium in Florida that she had listed on both websites where you can rent, from an owner.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm supposed to say
Airbnb or
VRBO. Okay, yeah, we'll throw them both.
Yeah, and we'll hashtag those in the
thing too. Hey, then maybe she will find it.
There you go.
So she is complaining and just really ripping into this customer service person at one of these companies,
mm-hmm.
because apparently somehow the booking calendar showed her rental as being booked pretty much all summer long, even though it wasn't.
Ah, gotcha.
And apparently she had fixed this at one of the companies, but it wasn't connecting to the other company. And this is a 30-minute event. And the problem was actually solved in the first 5 minutes by the customer service person. And the next 25 minutes is this lady continually pushing and complaining to find out why this happened. And so this is where I'm going with all of this episode. Control what you can control. She solved her problem. The person on the other end of the phone took care of what needed to be taken care of. Who cares what the problem was? Unless it happens weekly and it happens again next week and the week after that, then maybe you have a concern. But if this is the first time it's happened, essentially grow up, be glad it got solved, and move on. Let alone if it's 4 in the morning or 4 in the afternoon, I don't care. It was annoying.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's just, they don't care about anybody else around them. And that's just, I mean, that's more and more.
Yeah. And boy, we had that a few episodes ago where we were saying, maybe the youth of today are a mixed up mess and the future of the world's in jeopardy, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if what we're talking about is really a young person thing. You know what I mean? So we can't blame the youth for this whole category of things, but you're right.
No, they text. They do online chats. Rarely do I see them on a Bluetooth headset, laying into somebody. It's usually Karen from Florida, right?
Yeah. She was wearing a name tag now that you say that.
Everybody can recognize Karen for sure.
But yeah, I mean, you go back to, I think it was a book, of everything you need to know in life you learn in kindergarten or something.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that ties into everything we're talking about today.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So let me ask you this. Why do you think it is that it's our human nature that we have to try to control everything? And I mean, there are people that are more controlling. My wife is, and I wouldn't say control freak, right? But she likes to be in control. She likes to control outcomes, which is a great skill to have for her job and the volunteer work we do at the church. And so that there's a successful outcome. She wants to control things, but it does go a little far sometimes. I'll be honest with you. Like she likes to control me. I don't like to be controlled all the time. Right. So there's a scale, I suppose, but why do you think it's just human nature that we feel like we just have to have control, especially in specific situations?
Yeah. And boy, before I go there, maybe I don't want to give traveling people an out, but maybe the people that are traveling or at airports, maybe a fair amount of them have some anxiety and, they're fearful because they can't control that flight and some of that. So maybe that's what stems some of this ramped up.
That's a good point.
Whatever we want to call it. But you're right. I think maybe it's because we have so much access to information and yet a lot of people don't understand the intricacies of investing or medical professional diagnosis. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things we don't understand. And I think the point is not everybody can understand everything.
Mm-hmm.
So focus your efforts in your comfort zone or in your space of what you do well and let the other things happen. Because honestly, and we see this in the investment world all the time, the things that surprise us are the things that just come out of nowhere. And you know what I mean? If recession, that's always the big word.
Mm-hmm.
When's the recession going to hit? That's a word that gets bandied around all the time. But what's really a bigger driver on market movement might not be that. It might be a surprise with a bank failure, let's say, or a sudden invasion in a strange country, or you know what I mean? It's not what's right in front of you that you look at every day that really drives outcomes. So, here's an exercise. I don't know. Sometimes my mind works so fast that I'm always thinking I can describe a picture of something and everybody out there listening is going to be like, oh, I see it too, Corey. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes you tell me, geez, Corey, that was hard to understand. We need a handout for whatever the heck you were trying to describe in that pyramid, back in that podcast episode. But okay, so let's try this, Eric. Just humor me on this.
Sure.
If I ask you to draw one circle, can you draw a circle?
Sure. Okay. Hang on. Listeners, pause the podcast, grab some paper. Let's do this together. Hang on. I'm going to get some paper. I'm serious. I'm going to get some paper.
All right. And don't shade this in. I just want one circle.
One circle. Hang on.
Any size.
Desk, man. I got a notepad. Okay. Got my paper. I'm going to use a pencil. I like pencils. All right. I'm ready.
In case you screw it up.
Well, that's the funny thing is you said that and I'm looking at it doesn't have an eraser on this pencil.
Man, I hope it's a big piece of paper so you can try another spot.
Okay.
I want one circle.
One circle.
Okay. Now, I'm going to challenge you to draw a second circle, but I want these to overlap a little bit. Does that kind of make sense? So, I mean, if you're thinking like the Olympic rings, how they kind of overlap a little bit. So,
yep, I've got two circles.
Okay. So, in the space where they overlap, can you just shade that in for me?
Sure. Shade it in. Almost.
Okay.
I'm not coloring in the lines very well, but yeah, shade it in.
Okay.
Go for it.
Nope. Looks good. So now everybody out there, I mean, just think about it. If your entire world, everything around you, the outcomes of other people, economics, politics, everything you can think of is represented by these two circles. Now look at that shaded area. And let's say that alone is what you can control. Should you focus your efforts on that tiny little shaded space, Or should you lose sleep and stress about the whole pile of circles?
Yeah, I like that because at least the way I drew my circles is that it is a small area that overlapped. And so looking at the two areas combined, that's a whole lot of space. And it really does kind of narrow the focus of what I would be focusing on, right? A lot less that I would have to be concerned about.
Oh, exactly. And I know, and I'm not going to call the person out by name, but there's a person in my family tree, who sometimes we think worries about a lot of stuff, and my famous quote to that person was, most stuff just works out. So, and I believe it. I believe it all day long. Are there going to be surprises in your journey in life or mine or the next person's? Yes. Are some of them going to be painful, hurtful? Absolutely. But you know what? There's a heck of a lot of days that are good and great and glorious.
Yeah.
Why not focus and enjoy the ride? Control what you can control. And if that means outsourcing some things in your life to get better outcomes and get better peace of mind, by all means, you should do that. Whether that's a trainer at the gym, medical professional, accountant, lawyer. Well, what's the next one? Oh, yeah, financial planner. You know what I mean? These are things we've hit on before, but I mean, control what you can control.
Yeah. Well, I love that because, again, I would love to have a great yard, right? But I'm great with a lawnmower, and I'm great with maybe some, weed and feed every once in a while. But beyond that, I don't know what else I'm supposed to do until I actually consulted somebody and paid a little money. And boy, did my lawn improve because I'm not the expert in that, right? And so I could be out there for hours and hours and hours trying to control how my grass looks and how my yard looks. But if I get somebody else involved, right, then that takes it off my plate. And I still mow it, but I'm not the one that has to worry about the pH balance of this, that, or the other, or what creepy weed that is, or whatever, because I have somebody who knows what they're doing, right? And a lot of times I think, Corey, that we fall into the camp where we just don't know what we could control if we wanted to by releasing it to somebody else. And obviously that's what you do. And we've talked about this before, and this isn't just a long sales pitch for you. It really is just trying to get myself, I think, and the audience members to think outside that box to say, okay, I may not be able to control it, or at least I can't control it well. Who can I bring in that will help me to have more control of this scenario? And I know that that's what you do on a daily basis.
Right. It goes back to our old saying of, things have a cost.
Yeah.
But if that value that you receive is greater than that cost, that is a win. Whether it's the lawn service expert, somebody coming to do your plumbing, financial planning. I mean, it doesn't matter. Anything that you don't know or do on a daily basis, your time might be better spent in another category, and pay somebody that knows how to do that faster and quicker and better than you. Yep,
absolutely. And with that in mind, let people know how they can reach you so they can learn, what you can help them to control and, help control that outcome or help create that path to success, like we were talking about with the blockers.
Yeah, we're going to throw a couple numbers out here. So the first one is our toll-free number. Give us a call, 800-657-4316. And the second number, you can send us a text. This is secure business texting. For those people that don't like Bluetooth phone conversations and all that jazz, shoot us a text and we'll reply right back to it. That is 712-472-3867.
Fantastic. Corey, always a pleasure, my friend.
Right on. Same to you.
All right. Thank you for your time today. And of course, the last thank you, of course, goes to you, the listening audience. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Win Podcast with Corey Heimensen. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Corey comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. And we humbly ask that you share this podcast, rate it, and leave a review, as this actually helps others find the show. And if you happen to know a lady from Florida who owns a condo, please share this podcast with her and let her know that it's not appropriate to talk as loud as she was on Bluetooth, and nobody wants to know your business. Florida lady.
There you have it.
And there you have it. Again, thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at Heimensen Wealth Advisors, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Win Podcast. What's important now? The show that helps you achieve your financial dreams. To ask questions about topics covered during the show or get a copy of Stop Doing Dumb Things with Your Money by Corey Heimensen, Visit www.heimensenwealth.com or give us a call at 712-472-3867. Don't forget to click the follow button below to be notified when new episodes become available. Securities offered through Securities America Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through Securities America Advisors Inc. Heimensen Wealth Advisors and Securities America are separate entities.